This is the Collaboration Dynamics Podcast, helping you work together better with Judy Reese, X-Ray listener, best-selling author, international virtual collaboration trainer, and master of metaphor. Hear more at xraylistening.com.
And welcome to the Collaboration Dynamics podcast. With me today is Mike Sutton. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Judy.
Great to have you here. Now, would you like to introduce yourself and what you do in relation to collaboration?
Oh, collaboration. So, I'm Mike Sutton, like Judy said. By day, I'm a change agent for companies. I try and get people who build stuff working closely and joyfully and happily with people who want stuff built, mostly around software. So collaboration is the biggest word in that whole picture. So that's my day job. By night, I craft software things to help people do collaboration better, specifically in meetings, but generally.
Mm-hmm. And you've just introduced this amazing app called AmazeMeet.
Yes, I have. It came like a bolt out of the blue. I was working in a pretty large company. By large, I mean 74,000 people. And typically what happens is I advertise courses I don't entirely have yet. I have like a précis for it. It's a lean technique. You just put a feeler out and people are interested in it. Then you have to be able to respond quickly. And it was called facilitating effective meetings. Mm-hmm. And I had basically one day to create this 90-minute workshop. And it was like 4:00 in the morning. Sorry about this. My God, I've got all kinds of things going on. It was about 4:00 in the morning, and I thought, I've delivered similar workshops before, but really they haven't really achieved the aim. People enjoy the sessions, but there's been no long-lasting thing that they could use to learn how to facilitate. Mm-hmm. So I thought about how I personally facilitate conversations, and I turned that into a visual artifact, a canvas. And I went to the workshop, and we did a couple of things. The first was we took their each person had their last previous meeting experience from the moment they got the invite to the moment that they left the meeting, and so on. And they created it on the canvas, and more than half realized that meeting should never have happened. So we got some converts. From that experience, because they thought, actually, if we thought through this, we shouldn't be wasting this much time and human potential.
There's enormous amounts of time and money that's being wasted by meetings, isn't it? I mean, it's just phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. Well, my co-founder Violetta and I, when we started looking into this, we didn't think there was any numbers around this, but there's quite a popular study now that was commissioned by Atlassian, a software company, in the waste of time aspect of meetings in the US, and they've estimated it to be $37 billion a year.
Blimey. 37 billion a year.
Billion, because it's endemic. They came up with a huge amount of data. Some of it was like, the average employee attends 11 meetings a day. I didn't go into details of how long and so on, but that's a lot of people attending a lot of meetings. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, well, actually, from my own experience, because given that I work with very large companies, it is one of the recurring complaints across every single team, every single manager, every single executive that I meet is how many meetings they've got to attend. It's become like it's almost like a given that comes with the territory. It can't be better. And there's certain individuals. This comes to reputations. There's certain individuals in companies that seem to have reputations for having the crappiest meetings ever. They'll have some individual whose style is to have as many people as there is humanly possible who know about this particular issue to all be on the same call or in the same room. And the person who calls the meeting has no clue how to do large group facilitation. They just exercise their power and drag people in.
And you've got like 50 people on a video conference, and there is no chance of anybody getting a word in edgeways.
and literally, it's like an audience for 4 people to talk about the thing, because usually it'll be like 4 or 5 people that either feel empowered enough to participate or actually know anything that they can contribute to. So the remote aspect adds such a dynamic to it. It's a really exciting thing to be involved in right now, because it's without any kind of intervention, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm. Working in that space myself, I can definitely appreciate that. I mean, you start off having an ordinary conversation and you end up, well, you have a conversation about remote meetings and you think you're talking about half a dozen people.
Yes.
And suddenly you realise they're talking about 200 people.
And that's a scary thought. I mean, even coming back just to the language of things, right? This is what I find scary, and I'm hearing from you too, that you say, oh, let's have a meeting to discuss X, and the other person says, let's have a meeting to discuss X, but actually ultimately what they're talking about is a completely different definition of what that means. So there's a lot to do around. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of sort of level setting on what people mean by certain words before we can even then talk about how do we now make the thing that we both mean work. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it.
Absolutely. So one of my things is helping people to talk about what words particularly mean to them and what their metaphors mean to them.
Yeah.
On which topic I want to ask you about your metaphor for collaboration.
Yes.
So when you are collaborating at your best,
yeah,
you are like what?
That's a very good one. Okay, the way I'm going to address that is to do a word search for me, just to pick out the words that are jumping at me right now. So courageous, courageous, impatient, impatient. They're there. Excited. So courageous, impatient, and excited.
Courageous, impatient, and excited.
And so what I'm like is a Del boy selling a car. That's what I am, right? Because it's like it doesn't matter. The courageous aspect of it is I'm no respecter of person at that point. Right? I'm interested in the goal that we end up talking at a human level about the thing, whatever it is the subject is. And it doesn't matter who I need to speak to, at what risk to my own person. I just go for it. There's a euphoria about it, and I'm impatient because I want to get to that point. There's a flow, I guess, when people are really working together beautifully. I can't describe it. It's a state. If I observe, it's all very genial. Even if there's disagreements, people are kind of on the same page. They might be finishing each other's sentences. They might be reaching for the thing at the same time because they know that's what's next, And so I'm impatient to get to that point. And excited that, wow, there's a possibility that we might even get close to it. So that's, I feel like I would imagine a Del boy trying to sell something to somebody is, like, man, you're going to really totally enjoy this. And whatever your reservations, let's just take the chance. Come on, let's do it. That kind of thing. So that's what I'm like when it comes to like when collaboration is working perfectly for me.
And there's a flow and there's a euphoria.
Yes.
And excited and impatient and courageous, like a Del Boy selling a car.
That's correct.
And when you're like that,
yeah,
is there anything else about that Del Boy?
Oh, wow. So when I'm like that, it doesn't last for very long because I get exhausted pretty damn quick after that. Like, if I can sustain that for unfortunately, my job is really my day job as an agile coach in organizations is to sustain that not just for myself but for others. So if I have a day where I'm in that zone for 3, 4, 5 hours, generally, I'm basically shot by the end of the day. I'm like complete total exhaustion mentally, but also physically, because you kind of get this sort of physical coming down type of thing. So, yeah. So it's when I'm like that, there's a sense in my head now that I've experienced it so many times that, man, the down off this is gonna hurt.
So when there is that down and it is gonna hurt, then what happens? What do you do next?
What happens is I come back, and usually I'm in a hotel somewhere, and I go and have a Long Island iced tea, which is which is my signature drink, and I contemplate. I think, Mikey, how long are you going to be able to sustain this for? It's like you like that sense, that feeling of collaboration, especially when I'm doing it with a client. But it takes a lot out of you, and sometimes you get into that space, into that zone, and you bring people in, and they experience it too. But there may be things in their lives, in their reality, that kind of says that they can't have it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they just don't try.
Mm.
And for me, that feels like, oh my goodness, I've helped people see something for a moment, but now they're not gonna try and seek it themselves. And for me, that feels a little bit like not having achieved as much as I would have wished for.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I get my drink, I'm sitting down and I'm thinking about it, and I think, oh gosh, maybe I should just go and do something else, because I can't have this thing all the time, and the people I'm trying to help get it all the time, they don't feel like they can have it all the time. So what's the point? So that's one aspect of it.
And yet you do go and do it again.
Yeah, well,
So, what I think I've heard you say is that you've got that feeling of that euphoria, that flow, that excited, that courageous, that impatience.
Yeah.
And you're doing it even though
Absolutely.
The down off this is going to be awful.
That's correct.
So what I'm guessing is that the high of doing it is worth it.
Both the high, you're correct. Both the high is worth it, but also the hope that tomorrow I'm gonna be able to impact this one person who would just get it out of the in the 8 years, for example, that I've been working with big companies. I've worked closely with 1,500 people very closely, and out of that, there's probably less than 10%, probably about 5%, who have decided to stay in that zone, and carried on. And I get personal testimonials that the best thing that ever happened to me was you coming to our company and showing me there's a different way, and so on. And almost 100% of those people leave the company they were right, because they try and sustain it, and they find that actually some of these corporations aren't built to support and encourage collaboration. There's so many walls up. So it's the hope that I may find other people, I may help other people do this and enjoy it. That makes me kind of wake up the next day. and do it again.
And is there a relationship between all of that and creating AmazeMeet?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, it's a scaling issue. The scaling problem is that, I can't facilitate every single meeting there is, right? And I don't think actually that there's enough facilitators in the world that could do that. So the other answer is it better to have, is it better to have a few really good facilitators in the world and, you know, they try and do whatever, or many people who have at least a bit of a chance to just get a better way of designing their conversations. So I'm opting for the latter because, you know, I think that one of the biggest things any company or any other group of people can do is learn how to facilitate conversations. It's almost like it's basically working life 101.
Mm-hmm. We're so much on the same page here. If organizations can learn to collaborate internally,
yeah,
magic can happen.
Absolutely. Actually, just today, one guy, we had a retrospective, and one guy says, I want shorter meetings. And I said, you know, to help you get shorter meetings, what would be really, really useful for me is two things. One, you as the person attending a meeting, learning certain skills. And then we can go and help the person organizing meetings to learn some certain skills as well. It's a two-way thing. So, you know, if you're willing to sit in a meeting that's going on for too long, you're not learning, you're not sharing, it's of no value to you. What do? The answer is you put your hand up and say, this isn't working for me. Either let's make it work for me or please can I leave? You know, yeah. I said that to the guy and he was like, I don't know if I can do that.
And of course, that's really scary.
It is, of course. It's a scary.
But it's a skill. You start same way you start learning scales on the piano. You start at the bottom.
Absolutely. You know, and that's kind of the extreme case, putting your hand up and saying whatever. But the skill is in learning to help people see in a non-conflict way that this thing could be better. Mm. I remember a quote from what's the name? Marshall Rosenberg's book, Nonviolent Communication, where he recounts a story where he's at a party and he's kind of tired, and there's the dentists and doctors all starting just talking about mush. They're just talking about whatever they're talking about, and he grows a little impatient and he says, "Listen. We're spending some time here." And I would really like it to be valuable. But how it's going right now just isn't doing it for me. So would you be willing for us to actually talk about something that we all care about? Right? You know, and I think about it and I think to myself, it's much easier to just walk away, right? Or mentally switch off and hope the time passes. Right? It's much easier to do that. But if actually you are interested in getting value for the time that you're spending around people or in a meeting or in any endeavor, then you have really no other alternative than to trying to reach out and say, please help make this valuable for me. Mm-hmm. Right? Then it'll be valuable for you. And it's you know, we just have to find ways to help people find it comfortable enough to do that.
And that would be such a profound change within organizations if people had the courage to say, actually, this isn't working for me. Can we make it work?
Right. I mean,
such an enormous difference.
Huge difference. A huge difference. Like, we tend, based on my experience, we tend to approach that situation with aggression. Mm-hmm. Right? You know, people are sitting in a meeting, and you know, you can choose to go, this seems a little off topic. I don't know even what the topic was, but this doesn't seem to be giving us any value. Can we get it back on topic? That could be one approach. Another approach generally that I see is, you know, you're really just wasting it's very antagonistic. It's not progressive. It's not collaborative. It's, you know, people feel that, some people feel that because it's uncomfortable for them to say it, they say it in an uncomfortable way. You know? So I choose to think of that as a problem of practice. It's not practiced enough. It's not finessed enough. And organizations need to be they need to be investing in that hugely, hugely, you know.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about. I know that you and your co-founder in AmazeMe, Violetta, you were experimenting with exploring your metaphors for the process of launching a tech startup.
Yes,
Can you say a little about that?
That's my bad, to be honest. Because see, in my day job, I try and explain to people very different concepts, and I use metaphors a lot. Like almost every conversation has some kind of metaphor, because metaphors allow me to more comfortably describe what I mean in a way that the other person could also more comfortably see. So, and unfortunately, when I start to describe the metaphor, I'm also like a learner in the process. I'm like, wow, this actually works, right? So we kind of get carried away. And we were talking about two things. There's kind of two aspects to it. One of it was how, in order to launch this startup, it kind of started in a slightly unconventional way. It didn't start with software. It started with a piece of with a file, a PDF of this design canvas that was designed for people to print on paper and fill out manually. So the conversation was around, you know, how much time should we put to refining that PDF document? And I was like saying, well, you know, let's think of this like a rocket. You know, we send a rocket up into space, and it needs something to propel it through our atmosphere and pass through into space. And beyond that, the stuff that launched it then becomes a problem, right? It becomes too heavy and unnecessary. So it needs to sort of let go of the big heavy engine and some of its fuel and whatever, so that it can coast in a different environment. So we talked about that really in relation to the physical canvas, because at some point, most of the people who will be using the app will probably be using it on their computer or on their tablet, and they won't have need for the canvas. So at some point, we may not be supporting that, because the environment in which we operate and our users operate won't have that. So then we thought, wow, okay, what else won't we need, right? Using that metaphor, at which point do we break out of the atmosphere? So, I mean, when you now explore this metaphor, you start to try and find things, and you say, well, what is Earth's atmosphere? What's the similarity? What's the equivalent of Earth's atmosphere in our startup? And what would space look like, right? And what is that boundary between the two of them? Yeah, it's even like we start to go through this thing, and it's like, whoa, we just entered a different world here. I just like tickling bits of my brain I didn't think I needed to be tickled, right? So you know, that was the first one. The second one was, so far we've been really, really lucky. We have about nearly 8,000 downloads of this, of the canvas, of the PDF. And that's been in like 6 weeks. And one of the things that we're trying to do is experiment with various features and approaches within our startup. Like, you know, should we use email? Should we call people? Should we reach out to people on Twitter? We try these things, and we call them waves. So we now started following up, on the whole idea of waves. So we have the rocket metaphor, and now we're looking at the wave and waves building on waves metaphor, which kind of ended in a tsunami. in this sort of, build up of little ripples. They just kind of add up until there's just this massive deluge of, in our case, we thought it was going to be opportunity, but we don't know exactly yet. The jury is still out what deluge of what it's going to be. But of those 7,000 people, we for example, we opened the private trial to 124 of the first set of people to do. So that's kind of wave one. And now we start to think, really, what will be the content of wave two? What's the debris of wave two? What's that going to bring, right? And, waves surge to a coast and they surge back and they bring something back. So what are we going to put in the wave that goes out? And what are we expecting it to bring back in,
And what I'm hearing is a lot of enthusiasm in these metaphors.
Yeah.
What difference for you did using metaphors? What difference did that make to your thinking? You said it tickled parts of your brain, but what benefit was that? Well,
so again, this is just talking purely from a personal perspective, but also from an educated perspective around the subject of metaphors, right? So I'm perhaps more used to using metaphors as containers, as not containers, as they for me they are like a potential pot of answers, mm-hmm. right? It's like a picture you look at and somebody tells you that is it's a picture of a plant of a potted plant, and someone says your life is in that plant. Holy crap! My life, my past, my future, my present, and my future. You now start to look at it and you start to go, I wonder if I was the leaf. Then I get stuff from the sun. What's my sun? So it's helping you see sources of learning, like similarities between your context and this other world context. And it's easier to explore that because it's further ahead in time than you are, right? Mm. So it's almost exploring your existence through this other picture. But clearly the danger is you can take it too far, right? Clearly the danger is you can clearly take it too far. The skill is in knowing where, no, Mike, you're not a plant. Right? And yes, if the sun goes out, the plant will die, but probably you won't. So, all of these kind of, there are limits to it, clearly. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, I think that for us, Violetta and myself, it's like you are the third person, right? And you can look at this landscape and you can inquire from it your own things that could be useful to your own context. Mm-hmm. So a friend of mine in Germany does this thing called serious play with Lego, where they construct metaphors with Lego, and they are literally.
I've never seen it done.
No, you've heard of that, okay? Yeah. So so we'll say like, here are these various pieces. So they kind of gamify. They turn it into a game. So they'll say, they'll deliberately not give you human pieces, right? So there's no people in the set that they give you. Sometimes there's animals. So they'll say, use this to represent your office. And they'll go, my boss is like the elephant. Well, what is that? Or because he's big and got a trunk. No, not really. Because he seems to remember everything or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And they generate this thing. And what they're doing is literally constructing this landscape, this picture that Violetta and I are creating through language. And they're creating it physically. And then they can ask it questions. They can look at it and go, so you've got a hyena in your picture of animals. Why did you pick a hyena? And they'll talk about sort of negative aspects of behavior. And they'll go, well, how might the hyena become, I don't know, a flamingo? And you can look at it and you can go, well, maybe if the hyena went to live with other flamingos and the other flamingos gave the hyena some love, the hyena might become a flamingo. You know what I mean? there's a mapping that goes and it says, oh, so Stuart needs to go and sit with these other two people and let's hope Stuart gets some love, right? And Stuart will stop being like X, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they're all kind of techniques playing on the concept of metaphors, whether physically or mentally. And aside from anything else, they are just fun, to be honest. Aside from anything else, they are just fun.
Excellent. Now, I hate to stop this conversation because it's so interesting. I mean, I find it so interesting because metaphor is absolutely at the heart of what I do and what I do with collaboration and groups. Yeah. However, we need to come to an end. Sure. If people want to find out more about you or contact you or find out about AmazeMeet, how do they do that?
So AmazeMeet is currently located at www.amazemeet.com, and it's very short and to the point. The point being, life is too short for crappy meetings. There's 1,000 other things you could do than just sit in a crappy meeting. And for the work that I do with organizations, I'm at theimprovementpartnership.com. And the idea there is that I don't bring change. I come in and I help you get the change that you're looking for as an equal partner. So that's it. That's how people can get some of the Mikey love.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. It's been an absolute joy. Let's do it again sometime.
We should for sure. Thank you so much, Judy.
Thank you.